ever-flowing liquid fire of light, ever-expanding and illuminating truth, which is always revealed with wisdom, a spiritual nutrient necessary for vitality that is maintained through selflessness, a filter of ether that aids purity, which is love. Love, a limitless paper lantern floating into infinity on the intentions and actions of initiates of the mysteries. Welcome, fellow Phoenixes, to the Spiritual Phoenix Podcast, where we make a daily offering to the divine by putting our past on the pyre, searching the smoke for spirituality, turning the ashes into art, adapting isolation into connection, and manifesting mental wellness. I am a spiritual phoenix named Ross Cessna, and together we are the Spiritual Phoenix. The intent of this show isn't to tell you what to think, but to get you to think and originally articulate yourself in a way that is uplifting. We are the artists of our lives, and today is a blank canvas to collectively create a better tomorrow. And right now I'd like to take a moment and focus on what we're grateful for today. Today I'm grateful to be able to go back and read some of the books that I've enjoyed at different times in my life with a different lens towards what they mean. I did an interview this past week. This is pre-recorded, so if you're wondering why it's a different time frame when you hear this, you'll understand. But I did an interview with Dalian, former co-host of the Positive Head podcast and the producer of it in some capacities now. And I told him how I was getting ready to read Carlos Castaneda's A Yaqui Way of Knowledge again. And I said that I felt like I was going to get different insight from it. And he was like, yeah, you likely will, especially with that attitude. And I'm sure that some of the people listening to this have had that experience where they read a book again and it has completely different meaning, or the things that meant one thing to them now mean something different, or like it fractals off into all these different avenues. And that's one of the things that happened to me when I read the book that I'm going to discuss today. I'm going to get into a couple quotes from that book, and then I'll get into the discussion. Do you know what it's like to feel that nothing is quite real, including yourself? It sometimes happens when one's just on the point of discovering that everything, including oneself, is much more real than one ever imagined. It's like shifting gears. You have to go in neutral before you can change into high. And that was said by Aldous Huxley. Spiders can't help making fly traps, and men can't help making symbols. That's what the human brain is there for, to turn the chaos of given experience into a set of manageable symbols. And that was said by Aldous Huxley as well. And now I'm going to get into discussing Island. This is something that I'd like to do as I read different books, kind of discuss what they mean to me, or what I've drawn from them. And the first time I read Island was when I lived in Northern California, and I was just fascinated by the concepts in it. A brief synopsis of it is a man washes up on this island. This island operates different than the majority of the world, and they're really about developing oneself, exploring one's sexuality, and really kind of avoiding some of the neuroses that Western civilization really has, and that are inherent with modernization as well. And when I was reading this, I really had this profound sense of, I wonder if this is kind of an analogy in some ways, or a metaphor for what we need to be in the real world. And I understand that they're when they play out this character, I think it's William Farnaby or something. It's been a couple weeks since I've actually read the book, but I understand that that's what he goes through, is kind of like reprogramming himself, or actually maybe not even reprogramming, unprogramming himself to be in a natural state, but I really wonder if the greater metaphor there in lots of ways is to not be corruptible by society. I've heard it said, if you're worried about being corrupted, don't worry, you already are. And the island of, I want to say that you pronounce it Pala, is, like I had stated, like they're very removed from modern culture. They have a different outlook on things. Like the children there are parented by groups of people that sign up to be these parents, and some of the kids there will have 20 plus sets of parents, so they can learn different modalities of operation, different mindsets, learn different skills, and really kind of find their place. If I'm not mistaken too, like if when the kids get older, if they don't really see eye to eye with their parents, they can kind of detract from them with no real stigma associated with it or whatever. That's just kind of a tangent I went off on. I love my parents and I'm grateful to have them in my life. But looking at that, like the way that they present all this information as a whole, there's this island and it's removed from Western civilization and it's very happy and peaceful and it doesn't really have all the influences of this culture. And I really feel that, well, we need to be connected to things because they still interacted with the outside world. We kind of need to be uncorruptible as well. And I wonder if that was somewhat like as a whole, like looking at the book as a whole, if that was the analogy he was going to, and then he broke it down into the more tangible element of this individual going through this journey of finding his soul, really. And I mean, for me at least, that's what the book as a whole is about. And removing those neuroses that we have accumulated from our habits. And that path is messy. I mean, the gentleman washes up on this island broken. I'm trying not to give too much of the book away so people that want to read it can read it. Like, he literally is broken in the sense that he has like broken bones from how he ended up on the island. And I think that that's kind of a metaphor too for how when you start to become uncorruptible or more suited to be less influenced by the world, it doesn't start in this state of, at least for me, maybe it does for other people. I've talked to many different people and that kind of mentality starts from a state of being broken, from being completely torn down at the quote-unquote rock bottom, as they say. And from this state of brokenness, he's able to kind of repair himself. And that's been my experience as well. Sometimes you have to tear the foundation of things down and start anew, because the foundation is key for everything. Without the foundation, everything that you build upon that is shaky as all crap. So now it's about like how do you become an island but not be isolated? Because there's that whole saying, no man is an island. And well, physically, you, man, woman, can't be an island because isolation isn't healthy for many capacities. There's benefits to short periods of it, but isolating overall is unhealthy. And I know from firsthand experience that might not be the case for everybody, but I think that it would be. There may be exceptions to that rule. But spiritually, you can be somewhat removed but still interact as well. And it's something I'm still working on, believe me. I'm not 100% there yet. I don't know that I ever will be. But I'm able to physically be in situations, but spiritually also kind of be removed and be in my own mindset about it. like, I had an instance with one of my friends. I'm not going to get into too much detail about that either. And they're thinking about making some choices with their life that concern me for them. Typically what I would do in that situation in the past would be to try to get them to see my point of view, try to make them see it my way, try to me. Like, do you hear that? Me. And all that I've done is really just be like, find out what's best for you. You can figure it out. You know what's best for you. I certainly don't. Talk to your people in your support group that have experience with this, that have insight into this, because I'm not equipped to do it. And to me, that is, in a sense, being an island, because I'm not trying to influence this other person. And by not trying to influence them, I'm also keeping my focus on what I need to do. So I didn't let this foreign thing come in and invade. And I understand that may be nebulous and not make sense to some people. It makes sense to me. If it doesn't to you, that's fine. There's other instances of it, like participating in watching the news all the time, or consuming media, whether mainstream, alternative media, any of that stuff. And it's not to say that you shouldn't do it, but you should do so consciously and realize that the majority of these outlets out there are trying to push their opinion on you. I talked about that in my interview with Dalian briefly. Him and I discussed this kind of topic. It's about not falling into peer pressure, not trying to fit in, being comfortable who you are, no matter where you are, because you're comfortable with you. It's about not feeling like you're in the wrong place, I guess. Because it's one of those things where if you feel like you're in the wrong place, you probably are, but you can also view that you're exactly where you should be no matter what, and that these situations that are presenting themselves are to teach you things, or you can view these situations as these external forces kind of invading your island of peace. And that's kind of the analogy that, like, of the island I really want to drive home. Like, the island is this tropical paradise, and you can have that slice of paradise, or quote unquote heaven, or like whatever you want to call it, but you have to cultivate the mentality for it. And to be honest, it's not something I do perfect. I fall short at that all the time. But there are times where I gained admission to that island, and I still am able to interact with people, but I'm also still peaceful, centered, and connected to my higher power. And that's really all I got on this. I hope that this helps some people in some ways, because it's not about being isolated, and it's not about not participating in culture, community, or with things that make you uncomfortable. It's about just being there in the midst of things. Like the island too, it's in the ocean, so it's just kind of there and life's flowing around it, but it's unchanging. Granted, things in the story will show you how things develop, but it doesn't really leave it. I don't know. I don't want to get into it and do any spoilers. So, with that, you can support this podcast by signing up for the Patreon, and that is patreon.com/Spiritual Phoenix. And the Spiritual Phoenix is spelled the same as the social media link below. You can follow me on social media at Spiritual Phoenix. The spelling is below in the banner. You can visit the website, thespiritualphoenix.com. That spelling is also in the banner. With that, I love, respect, and appreciate all of you. Love and light. Namaste. I'm going to put this episode on the pyre. Peace.
Don't believe. Don't follow. Do not consume. Do not watch. Largely what I'm talking about here is reclaiming experience. This is what's been taken from us. It's a self-advancing, self-expanding, self-defining process, and it takes no prisoners.
The real world isn't a spiritual world, it isn't a material world, it isn't an empty world, it isn't a solid world. It's simply